The vision for AGI is to have truly human-level intelligence, that it really can learn. Imagine one of these AGIs gets trained up or trains itself up really largely to be a PhD-level cancer researcher. You can now make 1 million copies of that, and you have 1 million PhD-level cancer researchers chipping away at the problem. I mean, imagine the progress we'll make.
Welcome to the Thrive Podcast, where we dive deep into tech entrepreneurship and strategic growth. I'm your host, Bill Potter, founder of Thrive Advisors, and I'm here to guide tech-led founders through the maze of challenges on their journey to maximizing enterprise valuations. Whether it's scaling your team, navigating market shifts, or unlocking new revenue streams, we'll explore actionable strategies and insights to help you thrive in today's competitive landscape. Join me as we uncover the secrets to strategic growth and success in tech startups. Get ready for a thrilling dive into the future of artificial intelligence with our guest, Peter Voss. In this episode, Peter, a seasoned innovator and CEO, will take us on a captivating journey through AI's transformative power in business and beyond. Join us as we explore Peter's remarkable 2-decade journey, his groundbreaking IGO chatbot with a brain, and the pioneering integrated cognitive architecture shaping AI's future. Let's write the next chapter in human progress together. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, growing AI operations comes with its own set of challenges. Can you tell us some of the main difficulties you faced in expanding AI business and how you've overcome them?
Yes, certainly. I think for me, it's been a little bit different than for a lot of other companies because I've always been developing new cutting-edge technology that people weren't really used to, typically going above what the mainstream was doing. So customers would say, well, we don't really know this technology, and that has been a big challenge to educate them. For example, I've been in the chatbot space and IVR space, call center automation for a long time, and people typically hate that. When I go to a cocktail party or something, I say what I do. I say I hate these things. I always press 0 to get to an operator. Yeah. And because they're using the wrong technology. I mean, most of these systems are awful. They're using 20-year-old technology or they're implemented poorly. So we've been innovating to have much better technology, but then customers aren't used to it, and their consultants, their advisors might say, well, we don't know this approach. So that has been, I think, the biggest struggle to educate and to get enough reference customers, or to use other tricks like say, we'll implement it on our dime. That's how confident we are, and you pay us when it's up and running. So that has actually been my biggest struggle for scaling a business.
That's interesting. I know that AI founders are constantly looking to scale their ventures. What essential considerations should they consider to ensure sustainable growth and impact?
Well, I think right now, we have this massive wave that we are riding of generative AI. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of hype and misunderstanding. I mean, there's so much money being thrown at this that, there's just a lot of over-promising happening. So I think the biggest thing I'd caution both customers and entrepreneurs going into that they're really sure that they are building something that'll work and that'll add value, because a lot of these applications using generative AI really aren't reliable enough. They need a human in the loop, and they actually are very expensive to both train the systems and to run them. And it's often just simply not the right technology for the job.
So you were explaining earlier before the episode about how large language models have a tendency to hallucinate. And so can you take our viewers to first of all, understand what that means and the implications of that for businesses.
Yes. So large language models, ChatGPT, which came out just over a year ago, are really phenomenal in terms of what they can do. I think computer scientists, none of us expected them to be that compelling, that good in being able to have a conversation, to summarize, to come up with ideas and so on. So it is phenomenal technology. However, if you have applications that are mission critical, where you need to be able to rely on what the system says and how it responds, you have a problem. And in fact, the name GPT already gives you a good idea. It's generative. It makes up stuff. It literally makes up stuff. And it makes up stuff from 10 trillion pieces of information it was trained on, good, bad, and ugly. If we look at ChatGPT, it cost $100 million to train the system because of the massive amounts of data they had. But there wasn't any quality control over what data went in there. So it's good, bad, and ugly. And when the system comes up with a response, every now and again, in fact, quite frequently, depending on how you use it, it'll just make up stuff, completely bogus. For example, I could ask it, tell me about the paper that I wrote about kidney transplants or something. And it'll come up with something that I wrote a paper on kidney transplants complete with a reference.
But it
completely bogus,
Yeah.
So they may have fixed that by now, but it really, it's inherent in the technology, as I say, GPT. So the first problem is it generates, it makes up stuff. The second problem, the P, it's pre-trained. It's trained with this massive training session that they go through, $100 million worth. And it cannot learn on the fly. It cannot learn in real time. And that's a real limitation. If you put this into a business and they are changing business rules, your products change, your demographic might change and so on, you have to constantly retrain the system, and that's very expensive. So it cannot really learn on the fly. And the T, the transformer, just simply refers to the core technology that makes this magic happen, but it also ties you into this pre-training. So one really needs to be very careful about when this technology is appropriate. It's certainly great for summarization, if it's not totally critical that you get everything totally correct. It's good for idea generation, and it can also work pretty well as sort of an FAQ, like a better search engine. But the human always has to be in the loop to validate and say, does this make sense? If you have a multi-step process that's critical, like in customer service, where you have to identify the customer accurately, then you have to call an API, and you have to make sure you call the right API with the right parameters. Then there might be some negotiations, applying business rules to a customer, and then you update an API maybe. So each of these steps is, if there's only a 5% chance of error, by the time you have 6 steps, you're down to like 60% accuracy. Total disaster.
That's a great point. I recall reading an article a while back about an attorney who utilized ChatGPT. You're familiar with that story? Yes. And he submitted it without researching it, and I guess it had just made up case studies.
Yep, exactly.
And they were just completely bogus. I recently purchased a software company called Data Capable, and we have a product called Threat Detector. And it's interesting that you say, well, as powerful as AI is in assimilating vast amount of data, we also keep humans in the loop to validate it, because it's reporting back critical weather events, other events such as civil unrest, active shooter, bomb threats, and we always have to keep a human in the loop for validation.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's also the case recently of somebody put a large language model chat up for a car company, a Chevrolet dealer. And somebody said, well, will you sell me this brand new truck for $1? And the system says, yes, sure. And they said, are you sure this is legally binding? Yes, it's legally binding, So a lot of egg on their face. I mean, fortunately, the
Absolutely.
person didn't hold them to it.
Yes.
You know, or Alaska Airlines disaster, where their chatbot, again, a large language model chatbot, gave the wrong information to a customer. But then Alaska Airlines made the huge mistake of saying, it isn't our fault, it's the fault of the chatbot, you know?
Yes. Wow.
I mean,
Yeah, but who put the
right.
intelligence
Yeah.
in the first place?
So you know, we
how do
really
you
need something better. Yeah, we really need something better.
So when you're working with it, and I know that you work with a number of enterprise companies, how do you overcome that problem?
Right. Well, the way we overcome it is we use fundamentally different technology. DARPA came out with a paper a few years ago where they talk about the 3 waves of AI. And what they mean by that, the first wave of AI was the stuff that was done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, expert systems and IBM's Deep Blue, the world chess champion, is a good example of that. So they're mainly rule-based systems.
Right.
And that was the first wave of AI. It's now people refer to as good old-fashioned AI. The second wave, of course, hit us like a tsunami about 12 years ago, when people figured out how they could use massive amounts of data and massive amounts of computing power to do useful things with neural networks. And this is where, you know, deep learning, machine learning basically really came to the fore. And there were tremendous strides in speech recognition, translation, image recognition, and so on. And that really gave the impetus to the sort of self-driving car, you know, attempt. So we're still in that second wave of AI. Generative AI is sort of just the latest iteration of that. But it's really all about big data, statistical approaches. Now, the third wave is cognitive AI, and it's very different in its approach. It's not that it's about how much data you have. The starting point is, what is intelligence? What makes human intelligence so special? And building a system that incorporates these requirements of human intelligence. So, you know, like we're having a conversation now, one of the things that is really important in human intelligence is that we make sense of like every sentence that we speak, you know. You say something and I integrate it. Do I understand it? Does it make sense? Does it contradict something I know? Does it make me think of something else? And we can learn in real time incrementally. And we can conceptualize, we can generalize. You know, we can detect patterns, new patterns as we learn new knowledge. So they are not pre-trained with massive amounts of data. Our approach is basically we train it specifically with the curated data that we need. So, for example, one of our big customers is the 1-800-Flowers group of companies, including Harry and David, Popcorn Factory, and several other companies. And they utilize our system because they can totally rely on it. It doesn't hallucinate, and we've trained it specifically with their business rules, with their product information and so on. So we can give, really good, accurate service with that.
Now, how does that differ? I mean, is it that it's not a large language model?
Correct.
And so can you explain to the audience what the difference is between AI and the cognitive? Yeah.
So the second wave and the third wave, statistical versus cognitive AI. So statistical is really just you collect massive amounts of data. It's 10 trillion bits of data that goes into ChatGPT. And it's good, bad, and ugly. And it basically just statistically figures out how that data fits together and how you can predict the next word. And it doesn't know what it's saying. And this is why it can just make up stuff, Now, the approach we have is with cognitive AI, it's important that everything that the system knows has been validated and is accurate, and that the system can learn on the fly. So when a customer calls in and says, I want to buy some chocolates for my niece for her birthday, it will remember that piece of information and integrate it and connect it up to what the person's name is and so on, and can remember that and use it reliably. which is something you can't do with a GPT, with large language models. Right. So it's really the ability for the system to be transparent and auditable, as opposed to just being a black box, that statistically usually gives the right answers, but a percentage of the time it'll just give you the wrong information.
And so, so that I'm understanding it, so cognitive, I mean, I would assume that with large language models, it is sourcing data from every source, and that's what's part of the problem. Is this isolated from being able to, is the cognitive part isolated from being able to access all that information? When you say it's curated, I think you said validated data.
Correct.
So is it independent of being able to obtain all that information that LLMs are?
Correct, yes. Okay. Because, when you're giving customer service, we want something done, you're not really going to be interested in who the president of Bangladesh was 200 years ago, right, or whatever, exactly, or what the cricket scores were, and
Yes.
So it doesn't need to have all of that knowledge. So it's rather the quality of data that you're focusing on than the quantity.
Great. Well, given the pace of advancements in AI, how do you stay ahead of the curve? I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of research and development, as you continue to innovate in this rapidly growing field.
Yeah. So first of all, if one looks at that model of the first, second, and third wave, right, we are one of very, very few companies who actually embraced the third wave. Quite a while ago. We've been working on this for 20 years. So 20 years ago, I came to the conclusion, I'd actually spent 5 years doing research on intelligence and AI, and I came to the conclusion that the right approach to get to human level intelligence, or what's now called AGI, is to use a cognitive approach. That your starting point has to be, what does intelligence require? What is important in intelligence? What makes human intelligence special? And not, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of computing power, what can we do with it? So in that sense, we have been ahead of the curve for a long time. But we continue, obviously, doing our development and continuing to crank up the IQ of the system, and to see what other people are doing. I mean, there's a lot of money flowing into the general field of AI.
We had on our podcast Dr. Ron. He's a physician, very cutting-edge physician, that very early in his career, he was specializing in AI, and it's phenomenal what they're doing in the intersection between healthcare and AI. Are you focused mainly on commercial business, or are you also involved in healthcare as well?
Yeah, we've tried to do things in healthcare, and we've just found it incredibly difficult to get in there. It's very cautious, very slow, and there are a few dominant players who basically don't open up their APIs and things. So one of the things we're working with is a diabetes coach, to use our cognitive AI, that you can have this personal assistant who learns, your lifestyle, learns whether you love broccoli or hate it, whether you're vegan, and basically how you can best manage diabetes as a personal assistant. So that's the kind of project we can do, but as I said, we found it really difficult to get into the medical field. So our concentration really right now is on call center, automating, replacing call center agents.
Well, I think a lot of people that have to call into call centers owe you a debt of gratitude, because I can tell that when I call into a call center, it's oftentimes a long time on hold, and then the person can't help me. And
yes, absolutely. And, this is, again, unfortunately, most large companies have awful systems. They have old technology. It's not implemented very well. So that's why people hate these systems. But really, the technology exists that it's better in many cases than a human operator. As you say, there's no wait time. Right. The system has all of the information at its fingertips. Like our system, it'll remember if you called, for example, if it's like something's wrong with your modem, your internet connection, and you called up yesterday, and the first thing they'll ask you, have you rebooted the system? And they might say, well, try and move the receiver into the kitchen or something. But if you call back a few hours later or the next day, our system will remember that conversation, which a human wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't be talking to the same human, and even if you did, they wouldn't remember it.
Correct.
So no wait time, the system will have much better information, it'll be more accurate. And so you really can provide better service in many cases with the right automated system. We call ours a chatbot with a brain. And that really makes a difference. There's no other chatbot for customer service that has a brain. It has this cognitive engine that remembers, can reason about things, and has long-term memory, short-term memory.
And I would imagine you can provide that in multiple languages.
Yeah, we can. With language translation, there are some challenges with that. Language translation isn't perfect yet, but yes, can be done.
And so you're able to contain that in the, for lack of a better term, IVR system, away from the call center, and do resolution. What if I call up and I'm very upset? Does it understand sentiment analysis and be able to triage it accordingly?
Yes, absolutely. There are certainly, fairly obvious ways in which one can detect sort of what the level of, what the sentiment is of the interaction. With 1-800-Flowers, just last month we had Valentine's Day, and we replaced 3,000 agents, for that period, and there were 90% self-service. And people can ask for an operator at any time, and the system will also proactively transfer if it does require human judgment or human intervention for some reason.
Well, one area that I've been very involved in for almost 2 decades is the electric utility industry, and as you may know, there are large call centers, especially during critical weather events. Have you expanded into that space at all?
We're trying to.
Oh, well, call me.
Yes. Large organizations, unfortunately, often the people who end up making the decisions about new technology are the people who implemented the current lot. And it's very difficult for them to admit that their system isn't very good.
Well, the regulators hear about that, I can guarantee you. And so they're very keenly aware of customer satisfaction in the utility industry. And the implication for utilities is that the regulators control rate increases. So they're very closely tied. So the fact that you can create a better customer experience. Now, it sounds like your technology is mainly on an inbound basis. Can it also be modified to proactively communicate with customers?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
So it is,
and it's also truly omni-channel, if that's appropriate.
Right.
Where you could start with a text and switch to a call, or start on a web page, and then switch to a call, or SMS, and retain the sense of the conversation.
Well, that's significant because, as you said, true omni-channel. Because a lot of companies claim to be omni-channel, but all they are multi-channel.
Correct.
And so the fact that you can keep it, that I can, as a consumer, shift from voice to text to chat, and it knows where we're at in that context.
Correct.
Is significant.
Because it's the same brain that's continuing the interaction. So when a customer clicks on the chat button from a website, we know what page they're on, what they've been looking at. So we have that context already. But then it can also move from chat to voice channel, SMS, or.
And so for the human beings involved, I'm assuming that those interactions are then updated through AGI to the customer records. So we're tracking all interactions in the CRM of the client?
Correct, yeah. So of course, the back-end system is updated with whatever it has. But there's also a problem that a lot of companies have, that their back-end system may not be designed to store all of the relevant information. You know, again, going back to my example, I want to buy chocolates for my niece for her birthday. Now, the database may not have fields for recording, you know, what the occasion was, whether it's birthday or whether it was for the niece, what the relationship is, or other supplemental information that they might give, you know, that she's allergic to nuts, you know, or whatever. Now, our system has its own memory, its own long-term memory for each individual customer. So even if the back-end system doesn't have the capability of storing that information, you know, it will be stored within our system for each customer. Yeah.
Well, that's very valuable.
Yeah, but this is just the beginning. What I'm really excited about is for us to get to AGI.
Right. Well, you were telling me about that before the episode, that you feel that it's not so much a matter of when, but what the investment must be to get you there.
Yes.
What is your vision of what AGI, I mean, given the advancements that we're already experiencing, and it's significant, you know, in the future, where do you see all this going from a customer experience standpoint? I mean, when it gets to human intelligence.
Right. So, you know, what I call AGI, in fact, I was one of the 3 people who coined the term in 2002 when we wrote a book, Artificial General Intelligence. We didn't know that the term AGI would catch on as it did. So the vision for AGI is to have truly human-level intelligence. That it really can learn, you know, imagine one of these AGIs gets trained up or trains itself up really largely to be a PhD level cancer researcher. You can now make 1 million copies of that, and you have 1 million PhD level cancer researchers chipping away at the problem. I mean, imagine the progress we'll make. They can communicate much better than humans. They don't have egos getting in the way. They can concentrate for 24/7. So we will make tremendous progress in so many scientific fields, you know, whether it's improving battery technology, you know, energy or pollution or other diseases. So that is the promise of AGI. And then, of course, also dramatically reducing the cost of goods and services by automation. And thirdly, as personal assistants that we have, and I love to call them personal assistants. It's a personal assistant that you own, serves your agenda, and not some mega corporations. And that's the first personal. You own it. Second personal, it's hyper-personalized to you. Gets to know, you know, your history, your goals, your preferences, who you associate with, and can help you with all sorts of stuff. And the third personal is you decide what it shares with whom, the privacy issue, because you control it. So that is the promise of AGI, and that's really what, you know, I've been working on for a long time. Now, LLMs and statistical systems can't get us there. In fact, there was just 2 days ago, one of the luminaries in the AI field, Jan LeCun, just said large language models are not the path to AGI. They're an off-ramp, they're a distraction. They're a waste of time as far as getting to AGI, and I totally agree with that. And I think more and more people are realizing that the statistical systems, as impressive as they are, really are not the way to get to AGI. We need cognitive AI for that.
So if you feel that AGI is but maybe years, maybe 5 years or so away, that transformation, I mean, it will be disruptive to what exists today, because everything, you know, there's so many providers of
I mean, any number.
They'll just transition
you know, I mean, Bill Gates and I mean, a whole lot of really famous people have said that it's going to be bigger than electricity, you know, or the internet when we get AGI. It will be very transformative, and I believe it'll be tremendous for human flourishing. I think it'll help us solve so many problems and elevate humanity.
Well, it certainly should save, well, as you said, whether it's healthcare research or material science, maybe they'll eventually figure out fusion reaction at that point.
Right.
Now, the promise sounds terrific. Given that, I know a lot of people are concerned about that level of intelligence displacing them. I know that there are LLMs there that are secure that can take a contract and redline it and show what points to negotiate. At that point, a number of years from now, how do you see that impacting professions that are such as the legal profession or whatnot?
Well, once we get to AGI, to true human level, of course, all of these jobs can be automated and they'll be much more consistent and reliable. I mean, my own experience over the many decades that I've been in business with legal profession has generally not been very good in terms of the quality of advice, and consistency and so on. So, I think it'll actually significantly improve how legal systems are handled, and it won't just be the person with the most money who's likely to win or the most famous person.
Who's got access to the best program.
Well, no, that there'll be, there'll be the same program that you use. It's not.
Well, that's interesting because right now, as we know, there's a variety of providers of LLMs out there. You don't think that'll be the same case as cognitive AI becomes mainstream?
Yes, there will be, but once you get to human level AI. I think there's much more. There's going to be a whole ecosystem. When you have your own personal assistant, it can basically then find the best services around, for that, and it'll just be much more accessible. So it's hard to say exactly how the dynamic will work out. My own motivation is to make AGI available as widely as possible, so that everybody has access to this technology.
So today, most people live on their smartphones and they have hundreds of applications. With a personal assistant, it sounds like you'll be able to free them up of having all these applications on the phone. So the technology there will become much more ubiquitous.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's fascinating. Our audience is aspiring entrepreneurs and inventors that are really eager to leverage AI in their businesses. What actionable advice do you have for them as they how to integrate AI effectively into their ventures? Would you have them take a more cautious approach, based on these LLMs, or what would your advice be?
Yes, I think a lot of the dangers with generative AI are that they're not smart enough. That they don't know what they're doing basically. So it's very, what we see happening is. Both entrepreneurs coming up with new products and also customers tend to focus on the latest shiny new object.
Right.
And that's currently generative AI. And it's often just not the right technology. So I think just really be careful about what technology you actually use that's actually going to work, that's going to be appropriate for it. That it's robust enough, it's inexpensive enough, and that may be last year's technology or 5 years ago technology. It may not be the latest technology. So that's really, I think, my biggest caution is don't underestimate the difficulties and the limitations of large language models.
Well, good. Well, Peter, this has been an enlightening conversation. I appreciate your time. And thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Thrive Podcast. I hope our discussion with Peter has been insightful, practical, and applicable to your entrepreneurial journey. If you found value in today's conversation, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow entrepreneurs. Your support enables us to continue bringing valuable content to the community. Until next time, keep thriving.